Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. A quick intro to what you're about to watch. I was working on a video about the best adventure game UIs, and spoiler, my conclusion was that Leisure Suit Larry 7 had the best UI of all time. And if you want to know why that is, go check out my video on my main channel. But for that video, I asked a bunch of developers why they chose the particular UI that they did, and all the replies I got were in the form of emails. Except for Lowe, the designer of Leisure Suit Larry 7, who insisted on doing a live interview on camera. Now, I have interviewed Al before, back when I used to do the SQH podcast. I had an episode about the role of the narrator in adventure games, and I interviewed Al about how the narrator in his games frequently communicated with the protagonist as if the narrator were a voice in their heads. Unfortunately, that interview is completely lost to time because of a rather embarrassing technical error involving a third-party Skype recorder that malfunctioned 5 minutes into the interview, which was a great shame because he had some really interesting insights to share in addition to talking about the role of the narrator. And that was many years ago, and now I finally got the chance to chat to Al again, not just about the UI in Leisure Suit Larry 7, but also to reiterate those secrets of Sierra Tech that he divulged those many years ago, which I also put in a separate video on my main channel. But anyway, those two videos, the best adventure game UIs and the Lost Sierra voiceover tech videos, contain just small snippets of the hour-long conversation I had with Al, so it felt like a shame not to share with you the full unedited interview. So here it is, my conversation with Al Lowe, full length, uncut, and girthy as hell.
And you're still here. Perfect. It didn't refresh or anything.
No,
I am peaking like mad. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, you're blowing out sound.
That's a little better, I think. Yeah, there we go.
How am I? I look soft.
Oh, you. Well, soft is better than. Well, you're a musician. Well, you're also the creator of Leisure Suit Larry 7, so it depends on which Al Lowe I'm talking to. Is soft better than
hard?
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking to. Yes.
Yeah, your volume looks maxed out on my
yes
scroll bar, but mine looks very minimal.
Well, yours is fine. I know my way around a compressor, and I'm fiddling with the gain right now, so I'm probably a little soft on your end now.
I'm happy.
One of my
2. Oh, sorry.
One of my friends, one of my musician friends, who taught me how to use music software and such. He always said, "Yeah, you can fix soft audio, but you can never fix loud audio. If it's clipping, you're screwed."
Yeah, it's hard for most people to hear the low-level noise when you increase it.
Yeah.
But everybody can hear as soon as it breaks up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, the creator of Donald Duck's Playground, welcome, sir. I'm happy to have you here. How have you been?
I haven't been called that in a long time.
It's still my favorite game as a child. I was so surprised when I learned, holy shit, Al Lowe did Donald Duck's? Okay. Damn, I spent a lot of hours and hours and hours on that game. Beautiful. Masterpiece.
Well, thank you. I was proud of it. It won Educational Game of the Year from a couple of different publications back then.
Deservedly.
So I was pleased.
Yeah. I suppose you probably programmed, I'm off topic already, but you programmed that on an Apple, I would assume.
No, IBM PC.
IBM PC? Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh. So did Sierra do the Commodore 64 port in-house, or was that like outsourced to someone?
I think they did it in-house. They by that point, they had specialists on Atari and COM64 and Amiga.
Yeah, well, we should not talk about the Amiga.
To do those ports. So because we did it with the same adventure game interpreter, it was easy to port the graphics and sound and so forth. It was just a matter of fitting it into the COM64, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, this is way off topic, and I promise we will actually start at some point. But wait, I actually did a deep dive in one of my videos where we had to figure out why King's Quest V and Space Quest 4 in particular just look so horrible on the Commodore Amiga. And we went in and found out that, 32 colors is as many as the Amiga can show at any given time. So usually you would do palette swapping to make sure you had the optimal colors for each screen. No, they did not, sir.
No, they
Same
just picked 32.
No,
Yeah.
same colors for every single
Well,
screen.
the problem was by that point in time, Amiga was not, our sales to Amiga owners was minimal.
Mm,
And so it got, minimum support and minimum translation. So.
absolutely. Oh, I had notes.
Oh,
I shall get notes. Yes, I was trying to be a professional today. Let's see how that goes. Ah, yes. Okay, and now we have officially started. I guess. Yes,
for the third time.
for the third time. I said this wouldn't take much of your time. I lied. So back in ye olden days, text adventures, the first AGI games, the parser.
Hi, it's nice to be with you today.
Good. I'm so glad you could join us. As we all know, this is the creator of soft porn. No, wait.
No, that's not true.
That is not true. That's Chuck Benton.
Yeah, Chuck.
Good old Chuck. Leisure Suit Larry, for those who didn't know, started as a text adventure called Soft Porn, written by Chuck Benton, which was then translated into an AGI 3D adventure game by Mr. L. Lowe here.
Well, that's not true.
Oh, shit. I'm off to a great start then.
It was not translated.
It was transmogrified?
we took the descriptions of the scenes in the game and gave them to an artist, Mark Crow, and Mark drew pictures, and then from the pictures I wrote descriptions and text and so forth about the scenes. We kept the puzzles and the characters, and that's all. There was no central character, so I invented one, and I had to give him some name. So I had made a joke about leisure suits, and they were suitably out of style at that point. So Larry was alliterative with leisure suit, and so I thought Leisure Suit Larry, and then Land of the Lounge Lizards just seemed to flow
Yeah.
for that title. So we kept zero text from the original game. There was no graphics or music, and so what did we keep? The puzzles. That was it. So
Yeah.
if that's translating, then we translated the puzzles, I guess.
And of course, the best bit character of any 8-bit computer game, the dog that pisses on your shoes.
Well, that's funny how that came about. That was because Jeff Stevenson, the
Pissed on your shoe? No, sorry.
manager of the interpreter and compiler, created a new function that we didn't have before that would count actual seconds. And so I thought, well, what can I do with that? I got to use that somehow. I mean, he put it in there. We should use it. And that was the only thing I could think of.
That's
if you stand still too long, you are not making any progress. And so therefore, yeah.
See, that shows what I know, how much I've actually played of the original, because I was 99% sure that dog was in the original soft porn game. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Nope.
So tell me about working with the parser, anticipating player inputs, writing descriptions and feedback for what the player was trying to accomplish. I'm told it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of trying to get into the mindset of the player. How did you cope with that?
Well, I don't know how deep into the weeds you want to go here, but we
As deep
had
as you
two
like.
lists. We had a list called verbs.h and a list of nouns.h. And it was literally a text file that said, look. And then there was a tab or a comma. I forget which. I think a comma. And then the next word was a synonym for look. So it would be gaze or glance or spy or oversee or something.
Mhm.
And so then you would go down the list of verbs that get was take and grab and move and pull and push and pick up and stuff like that. So those were the verbs, and in the nouns we had whatever noun was in the game. We literally defined that. So and the number of lines that was in that file was the number of the noun that we put in the code. So, in other words, if you said "look room," that was probably 1-1.
Yeah.
So, but rather than storing in the interpreter or storing in the compiled code, um, a comparison with all words that were several characters long and stuff. It was one number,
Yeah.
one number. So one byte of
Yeah.
code, one and one. And then if it was look at the door, that would be 1, 2. Just look at the tree, 1, 3. Now,
Even I can
the
understand
thing
that.
about the way we wrote the games was that we didn't write if player types, what was it, if input or something, no, what was it? I forgot the opcode for that. Anyway, the we had something that said, if somebody inputs this, we put the words in instead. So if they say look room, you could read it as kind of English, it kind of made sense. And I've learned that sometimes the people that made the AGI ripoff, which I can't remember the name, AGDS or something, the Adventure Game Development System.
Oh, there's Adventure Game Studio, which is
reverse engineered the code.
there's that. Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah, AGI Studio.
Yeah, but at first they were using just plain numbers. They saw we were sticking numbers in there, and so they made the poor programmer figure out, oh yeah, that's number 23, and this is number 17, which would be horrible. So we just had a bunch of statements that said if they say this, if they said this, if they said this, and then a response to those things. So
I'm imagining a lot of Post-it notes across the desks of the programmers.
I have no idea, but the way we did it was very efficient. And when you wanted to add a synonym, you just put a comma and added it to the end of that line. So we had this whole line of verbs and another file with a whole line of nouns. Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, two questions spring to mind. One is that when I was chatting with Scott Murphy at one point, he said that one of the limitations of AGI was that the entire verb and noun list for the entire game had to fit in memory at runtime. So it wasn't it wasn't like you could say, okay, we're going into the next room now. Read this other file that contains everything. So because it was limited to what could fit into memory, the AGI games were actually less verbose than they could have been. I believe Infocom had some sort of like when you move into a different area, it reads from a different list or something like that. Anyway, so that was one of the limitations of AGI. Did you ever run up against any roadblocks?
No, I'm not nearly as wordy as Scott.
I don't think anyone is.
I wonder if now I'm thinking about it. I wonder if Jeff used 1 byte for those numbers, because there might have been a 255 word limit to the game. Yeah. I never got to that. I never noticed that. So,
well, that's interesting. The other question that popped into mind was,
and all that was changed. By the way, all that was changed with SCI. Yeah.
Oh yeah, object-oriented coding. There we go. The other one.
Still a header list with names and nouns and verbs.
Hey, it's a cool system, and it's a lot easier than Adventure Game Studio, which is what I'm puttering around in. It does the whole thing where you have to define each and every verb separately and assign them as synonyms to a pre-existing verb. It gets very confusing. The whole comma thing just sounds a lot easier to me. The other question was, since you had all the synonyms in a single file, one of the famous little quirks of a game like King's Quest II is that you could walk up to any female character in the entire game and call her Valinus, and it will accept that, or mermaid, or because it's just a synonym. Yeah, because it's just a synonym for woman.
Yeah. Yes.
So how did you delineate? How do you like tell the game? Now, sorry, in this room there's no such thing as a Valinus or a jukebox or a door or whatever.
I didn't do that because I never defined character names as man and woman. I didn't make them synonyms. So each character name had its own entry in the table.
And you never ran out of room.
Well, not that I remember. You know, I'm trying to think of what was the last game I did in AGI. Was it Larry 3?
No, that was SCI.
Was that SCI?
That was SCI. I think Larry 1 was the only AGI game. Did you work on Gold Rush, maybe? Because that was one of the last.
I didn't
AGI.
work on Gold Rush.
Yep. Because I know you did shadow programming on pretty much every AGI game back in the day. So
we all picked up for each other. I know what I was going to tell you. Never mind. It slipped my mind again. Yeah, it was
perfectly all right.
Something about text and
if you remember it, just throw it in there. I'll shut up.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I'm old, you know.
Hey, that's fine.
I'm old enough to be president.
That's a good line. I'll sadly have to cut it for political reasons. So, now that we've covered the technical side of the parser, the actual contents of it, there's a very interesting story about what you did with the... Oh, here we go.
We were talking about your question, which I never answered, was how to respond to the parser. I got technical on you, but the real trick that I came up with that was then adopted by everybody else who was writing games was I created a special module that whenever you received the error message, I don't know what to do. You can't do that here, at least not now. Remember that one?
Oh,
yeah.
God.
That horrible thing.
That is such a tease.
Well, that's I don't know what the noun was. I don't know what the verb was. I don't know what the hell's going on. That's the only message I got for you. Well, when you hit that and everything fell through and we didn't know noun, we didn't know verb, we didn't know what to do, then I print up that message. I wrote a module that then stored on a data floppy a line in a text file that gave the scene number, the XY coordinates, the look of the character, look of Ego's. Oh, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Ego?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Play a character.
Yeah,
play a character's
view number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what he's doing at the time.
No, it's what he's wearing.
Oh, what he's wearing. Yeah. Well,
his look. In other words, he's got a particular set of animations, and that's, so I want to know how he was dressed in that. And what you had typed, and maybe a couple other flags I can't remember right now. But it would then write that line out to a text file on the floppy, on a data floppy. And then when my beta testers had finished the game, I had them mail me the floppy. Oh, because nobody had a modem. How would you ever? They'd mail me the floppy disk. And then we had 12 beta testers. So I got these 12 floppy disks back and took all those files and loaded them on my hard drive and then used DOS concatenate. Who knows that command? Yeah. DOS concat star.txt, I believe was the command. And it took all those lines from all 12 floppies and put them in one big file. Then I used the DOS sort command to sort all those, which put them all in scene order. And then I went through by hand, and I wrote a macro to delete each complete line. So I would just move the cursor down to a line and hit. Oh, that's a duplicate. Those are all duplicates.
Yeah.
And when I was done, I had a list of the things that people had typed that the game didn't understand. And then I went back through each scene and added everything that they wrote and more if I could, whatever more came to it. But that, and then we did another round and we did that same thing again. And I got lots more feedback. So that's why the parser in Larry 1 worked better, is because, like, somebody wrote, when you were in the bathroom, somebody typed masturbate. and I thought, well, I got to put that in, that's the, and so I put in a line for, just so that you wouldn't get the stupid default message. And
the whole point was to stop doing that.
2 years later, I was in Hollywood. I had the producers of some big TV series, Married with Children, maybe, or something. Somebody wanted to do a show on Fox of Leisure Suit Larry, a sitcom. And so they said, well, you've got to show us the game. And none of us here know how to play games. So we'll fly you down here and you play the game for us and show us that. Okay. So I flew down to Hollywood and we're in this big conference room. There's like 20 people there. So my method of doing it was, well, you're here in this bar. I would just say, here's, what can you do here? Well, you can look around. All right, look around. I typed that in. And of course, look was a verb and around was ignored. Mm-hmm. And the game gave a message, and then we did something else. So finally we got in the bathroom, and some guy in the crowd yelled masturbate, and I couldn't remember if I had put the line in or not. And so I said, all right, well, let's see. And the line I put in was, Larry, the whole idea of this game was for you to stop doing that.
Yes. Oh.
And I got a huge laugh, and we never got a contract, though. We never got a sitcom out of the deal, but at least
it was worth it to see a dude in an Armani suit shout masturbate
for my interpreter parser extension program.
Well, that's amazing, because what you've just done, sir, is preempt the 2 stories I was going to pull out to try and impress you that I'd read or heard you talk about previously. Those were the exact 2 stories.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I've blown it.
No impression.
I only have 3 or 4 stories, so that's.
But they're really good. So yes, I did know about the thing you put in the code to log all the error messages, which was why I was subtly fishing at the. Did you ever run into a limitation? Because there's got to be a lot of those. Error messages when people play the game. I would imagine like 90% of them are expletives, but some of them must have been.
We had a long list of synonyms for expletives.
Yes. We actually had to, this is a side story, but we had to actually go look in Space Quest 1's synonym list for expletives, because there's a cheat code in Space Quest 1 when you're at the slot machine. Thank you, by the way, for introducing slot machines in Sierra games. I will never forgive you for that. But
I think that was Chuck Benton. I think Chuck Benton had a slot machine.
Yes, they were in the original, but for some reason, every goddamn Sierra game had to have a slot machine after Leisure Suit Larry 1. I'm not sure why. But anyway, the cheat code in Space Quest 1 to bypass the slot machine is to type in holy and then an expletive.
Oh.
So we had to. We went in and looked at the entire expletive list to see what we could get away with. For some reason, fart is in there.
Oh.
Well, yeah,
it was a different time.
It was a different time. So I actually had I asked some of my YouTube buddies if they had some questions regarding this, and my pal One Short Eye actually knew about the story as well, that you logged the error messages, and he wanted to know, apart from masturbate, what was the weirdest input that was in that file, if you can recall one.
I'll tell him. You're
tell him you
talking
said
about
hi.
one day, 35 years ago. I no, I don't remember. I'm
That's fine.
sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll tell him he was a twat for asking. Um, okay, so that was the parser game. You seem to enjoy, as far as I can tell, seem to enjoy working with the parser, anticipating what people would put into it. What were the
It was
drawbacks?
more of it was less enjoyment and more of a concern because I like to play Infocom games, and their parser was excellent, and ours wasn't. You know, we had limitations, and so I had a fear of the game coming out looking dumb, not recognizing enough things. So I was concerned about it. I spent a lot of time adding words to nouns and verbs.h.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't all roses. Like from a UI standpoint, from user experience standpoint, what do you think are some of the drawbacks of using a parser to communicate with a game?
Well, first of all, spelling counts.
Yes,
And a lot of people don't spell well, as I think the internet has proven. So
I'm from a different country. I didn't know
look
how
at
to spell
any
until I was
comment
10.
field. Look at any
Yes.
comments. But the yeah, so that was one of the major problems. Another was figuring out what the programmer thought that thing looked like. Because you would look at something, you go, well, wait, what is that? Is that a? And then you didn't, you had, unless there were clues. And I tried. That was part of what I did, was try to put clues in the um, look messages that would tell you the words that I was expecting you to use. So describe the things and use that word in the description as opposed to some other.
Yeah. And that's where Scott would usually fall over his feet, because he'd usually put in some sort of weird description. Like there's a jungle beast in Space Quest 2 where it's, after you knock him out, it said, oh, all the little parasites just crawled off his back and went in the fire or something. And of course
Uh-huh.
your first instinct is to go look parasites, and he goes, there are no parasites. I don't. um, but yeah, so that's interesting. So on the flip side, um, what do you think the parser can do that any point and click or any other type of interaction system cannot do? What are the strengths of the parser?
Well, it has the flexibility of allowing input that you don't think of. There are possibilities that you can't really do with point and click. But on the other hand, also that was also frustrating for a lot of people. And so I think I was a fan of point and click games. When they came out, in fact, I kind of invented point and click, right?
Did you now? That's strange. Roberta says she did.
I know. Well, Roberta gets credit for it, and rightfully so. But if
She
you
already
look at
invented the graphic adventure game. Why would she take credit for the point and click as well?
if you look at Black Cauldron, there are it's not point and click because we didn't have mice. Nobody expected you to have a mouse back then. But there were 4 function keys assigned to the 4 verbs. And that really made a huge difference as far as the game was concerned. So we set a limited number of verbs, and those actions worked with. So, yeah, I didn't have icons, and I didn't have a mouse, but I did have a limited substructure inside there.
Close enough. And I suppose if you really want to get technical, the Manhunter games had sort of a pseudo point and click.
They did, yes.
Because you just controlled a little sprite across the screen that was the cursor, and hit enter, and stuff would happen. But yeah, so but the point and click interface that Sierra became known for, the icon bar with the walk, the look, the hand, the talk, and in your case, the zipper, Um, I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the zipper was included precisely because you may have felt that the existing 4 icons were limiting in some way, or perhaps that the hand icon was not sufficient for the action intended.
The initial response was, I can't do the same thing that Roberta did. Or, but then the next response was, well, what could I do to the icons to make them funny? And I thought having a zipper up there would be funny looking. And then once it was there, it was like, oh shit, now I have to put some kind of zipper message in every all over the game. So I made myself a lot of work for not a lot of action, but yeah, I don't know. It was fun.
Which I guess introduces one of the weirdest things you can do in the Leisure Suit Larry 1 remake, which I don't think there's a message for in the original AGI version. If you click the zipper on the moose head in the bar, I don't think anyone has tried to type "fuck moose" in the original, but here we are.
They could have. They could have.
Well, yeah. Did that ever crop up in your little error text file?
I never saw it. I don't think, but it probably would have said "don't talk dirty" or something.
Yes.
We don't. Yeah, but
interesting Easter egg. Space Quest 3. If you type in a swear word more than 20 times, the game will actually say "stop saying that shit." There's a swear word in Space Quest 3.
I liked Scott's. If you typed in "win game,"
yes,
it would say, "Okay, you win," and exit you to DOS.
Yep.
Not give you a chance to save or anything. It's just, okay, you win. Bye.
and even that's in Space Quest 2. It even says, "You are the most bitchin' adventure game player ever."
Yeah,
it's just
funny.
Game ends.
Yeah,
which is actually fun because the aforementioned One Short Eye, one of my YouTube buddies, he does videos on adventure game speedruns. So which sounds antithetical to how you're supposed to play an adventure game, but there are adventure game speedrunners, and the speedrun record for Space Quest 2 stands at a whopping 3 seconds. That's the time it takes to type in the word "win."
Oh yeah.
Or cheat. No, it's actually cheat, but who cares? All right, so moving on to we're actually already in the icon. I'm just studying my notes. Would you, if possible, now you said you added the zipper icon for flair, for humor, which I was not expecting. I was actually anticipating, because I like putting words in people's mouths, that you were going to say that it was because the icon bar was a little too limiting, perhaps. Certainly that's how I felt when I went from parser games to the icon bar. It was like,
sure,
everything's the hand icon now. What is that? Push, pull, get, pick up, open. It's all of them. So the question I had was, given the opportunity, would you have added more icons to the icon bar?
Well, I had the opportunity, so I guess the answer is no. I mean, we could have added more.
Perfect.
We would have had to shrink each one. Shrunk. If that's a word. Anyway, so we could have, but we didn't.
Famously, Jane Jensen went on a complete redesign trip with Gabriel Knight 1, which had, 15 icons or something. And then the hand icon, which did all of those things. So, slightly wasted effort, but hey, who's counting? Her heart was in the right place. So, let's get into the absolute best UI of any adventure game out there. Leisure Suit Larry 7. The preamble is done. The foreplay is over. Let's actually talk about what we're here to talk about. The reason why, I'll give you some background. The reason why I think Leisure Suit Larry 7 has the best UI of all time is twofold. One, you click on something, you get a contextual menu. If you click on a door, it'll say open or knock or kick or whatever, but it will not give you any verb that doesn't have anything to do with a door. Same if you click on a person, same if you click on anything else in the game. That's beautiful. Number two, it has an optional parser. So even if the contextual verbs do not meet with your approval, you can type in your own. And that is why I think Leisure Suit Larry 7 is such a beautiful UI. Now, what went through, because I know at the time Sierra were moving into single click interfaces. We don't even
Yeah.
have icons anymore. We just click on stuff, stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it's completely up to the wind to what the protagonist is actually going to do when you click on something. You just have
Yeah,
to.
that always, I'll take that in. Let me talk about that first, because that to me seemed like a cop out. That seems like we're making the game so dumb that any moron can play it. And I never felt like adventure games were set for morons. I thought adventure games were set for the upper 10% of humans. And that was the goal. That's what I went for. I remember vividly talking with Ken when there were. I think we just read a story that said 10% of U.S. homes now have computers, and we said, "Oh my God! Think of what it'll be when it gets up to 25% of homes." And well, what it was the 10% were the people that were at the top 10% of the scale. And as we didn't increase the top. We just kept lowering the bottom. And that's fine. I mean, I'm glad people did that. But the games that are out now that are just, hey, there's something sparkly, click on it. What the hell is the point of that? I mean, that's just a exercise in finger movement. So to me, that has no satisfaction and no goal. But I was very proud of the Larry 7 interface. My co-designer on the game was Don Munsell, and he's a brilliant programmer and adventure game player and stuff. And I was very lucky to have him on the project. And he helped work on design, and he was the lead programmer. So, much of that success we owe to him. But he figured out a way to do that that would work efficiently within our guidelines, because we had a year to produce a game. It wasn't like we could miss Christmas and still have no problems. It was get that damn game out by Halloween, or your kids don't eat next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he made it efficient, so efficient, in fact, that the whole programming experience was just very few bugs, very few rewrites, very few problems in the code. In fact, the last month, the month of October, was kind of boring, because we didn't, they would get bug reports overnight and in the morning, and then in an hour they had everything fixed. And so what are they going to do the rest of the day? Well, that's when they added dildo.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They put that in just to keep themselves busy.
Yeah, Leisure Suit Larry 7 has a lot of Easter eggs as well. I mean,
Yeah.
there are Easter eggs in some of the other games, but 7 really has a plethora of them.
Yeah.
And I was okay, so that makes sense now. And having
Yeah.
such a robust UI also meant that you cut down on negative feedback. There are practically no "you can't do that" messages unless you use the parser.
Yeah.
So of course the question here has to be,
Remember, that's when I came up with that module, was the damn parser.
Yes.
People would type stuff in we couldn't figure out.
See, I was gonna ask, did you reapply the same lesson you'd learned from 1987
Oh,
and
yeah.
have it log the inputs? Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, that was it. You already answered the question of whether or not you were disappointed in the single click interface. Me as well. Do you wish other games had sort of adopted the UI of Leisure Suit Larry 7, and why do you think they didn't? I haven't seen any other games that had a contextual menu and a parser on top of each other.
It was more work. Honestly, it didn't increase gameplay. You know, it didn't make things bigger or larger or more action or more animation or any of those things. It did give people a little more freedom and let me put in some jokes that, you know, for people typing things. And those are cheap, by the way. You know, somebody would type something. I could type a message up real quick and stick that in. And it literally took a minute, maybe, I don't know, to do. The way SCI and AGI before it worked was each scene was an individual module, and each module was compiled independently. So I had a text editor that I would write. I don't know what. The,
Fuck moose.
I'm trying to come up with a place, like the pool, the
Oh,
swimming.
right. Yeah.
Okay, I have a scene for that. All right. Well, that scene, I could load all the code for that scene into my editor, and I would work on it, change something. I would hit one key. I had a macro on my editor that would create a DOS window, a sub window. Remember, I'm sorry, we're not in Windows. It would, it was in DOS. So
Yeah.
It's old days. But anyway, it would create a DOS shell and run the compiler with the scene number of the current scene. And if that came back without an error message, it would then shell out of the editor and open the game with that scene number, go directly to it. So in other words, if you called the game and had a number after it, it said, oh, he don't want to play the whole game from the beginning. He wants to leap to room 252. So it would take you immediately to 250. So I could make a change, type it in, hit a key, compile, test.
Yeah. That's
play
beautiful.
the game. Oh, I'd see a mistake. I could then hit Alt-Z to exit the game, and it would shell me back right into the editor, and I would be in that scene in the editor. So a round trip to make a change, compile, load the game, test it, and come back could be 5 or 6 seconds.
That's
and
amazing.
It might be 10 seconds if it took a while to figure out what I wanted to change. But it was so efficient. People don't, now I think a lot of things require you to compile the entire game and so forth. And we never did that because we had we I'm laughing because we called every scene a room, whether it was outdoors or indoors or whatever, or just an interface part of the game. Everything was a room. And that's because when Ken wrote the first game, he didn't know what to call stuff. So he called animations view, VIEW, and he called a scene room, ROOM, and he called the main character. He got tired of typing in Larry or whatever it was. And those were all EGO, because it was short, fast, easy to type. And everybody used that convention because it was just so easy to think of it that way. So
you know what the messed up thing is? Those standards that he came up with, database efficient programmer that he was, carry over to other adventure game editors that people use today. Adventure Game Studio calls them rooms and views. I shit you not, sir.
Why? No, there's no good reason. But it is a one syllable word.
Yep.
So that, I guess it's efficient to say and type and write. So anyway, yep.
So that is beautiful. And we have what?
The other great innovation that SCI had was that we kept our text files, all the messages that came up on screen were in a file called message dot and then the room number. So you had source, SRC, I think, SRC dot room number. And
SCR, I think. No, fuck it. Never mind.
yeah. And
this is 40 plus years of history going through a man's
25 years, man. But anyway, so we would have these files, and the text files were all in a separate file. So when you went to translate the game, you could literally send off the text files as a separate entity. And as long as they included the same format on the return file, we could have the game translated into German or whatever in a single stroke. I mean, it was just a matter of copying the files into the subdirectory. So
that is
and the other brilliant thing about that was that when we went to the studio and recorded voices, once the voices were broken out and assigned to, a room number such and such, message number such and such, the interpreter would look at the text in the game, and they said, put up this message on the screen, message number 27 for this room. That message would appear in text. But if there was a audio file 27 for that room, that message would play automatically, and the text would be in subtext or not at all, depending on how you set the flag. So it was so magical because we would come back from the studio and the game would be silent. And then as the audio guys broke out the sound, suddenly you'd play a scene and the damn game would be talking, and we hadn't done anything to it. It was that was a real fun payoff for that program.
That's amazing. This is great. You know what? Let's shoot the idea of cutting the interview in half in the head, because we're already into the lost tech of Sierra, and I just want to keep going.
Well, the biggest lost tech was the Dreams audio system.
I believe
about Dreams.
I believe you told me that the last time. It's magic. If it's what I'm thinking, then it is indeed absolute fucking magic, and I cannot wait to hear that story again. Please.
When we started doing CD-ROM games and we realized we could have voiceover, one of the systems engineers said, gosh, breaking out lines with an editor and a mouse and clipping this and doing this thing and then saving that as some magic number someplace and then rewriting the code so it would know to look for that magic number. That's horrible. We can't do that. So instead, he said, DOS has 8 letters and 3 extensions, right? An extension with 3 bytes.
Yeah,
so he came up he took the first 2. I can't bend those fingers. He took the first 2. Yeah, that's good. And assigned those to I used to remember the verb. What was the noun? A 36 character alphabet. So he took all the letters and numbers. And so he made everything base 36. By using 2 bytes, 2 characters, that gives you 36 times 36 possible combinations, or maybe one less than that probably. But anyway, what is that number? Do you know? It's big.
I am not mathematically inclined, but that sounds like a lot.
A couple thousand. It's up there. Somebody will answer that and put it in the comments below. Yeah, but so using base 36, he assigned every room 2 characters, so we could have more than 36 rooms, of course. And then within that room, there were conditions. And so the conditions were 2 bytes, and the characters were 2 bytes, and the message for that character was, shit, I'm missing something. There were 2 more. Anyway, it was 4 groups of 2 bytes each. So billions of combinations. And then the extension was the number of the action, which whatever scene was. And so then once he had that 11 character magic number, then whatever you did in a room, in a scene, was a unique action.
Yeah.
So if you said, look, tree, that would be, well, where are you? Who are you? What are you doing? Who's going to speak? What's the answer? And here's the message number.
Yeah.
And that were great. So he took that, he took the code that we wrote for the game and broke it apart so that it would record in another file every possible combination that could call up a message. And then it sorted all those by speaker. So everything that Larry said, everything that Torrin said, was put in a script, one line after another.
Mm-hmm.
And it had this magic number off to the side, but nobody ever looked at it. Nobody used that. It was just for the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the text for it, and we had a line number, I think, like a decimal number that was, line number 2,343. But nobody ever wrote that down. It was just that's how we talked to the talent in the booth. Okay, so now he would take this, like Larry 7 script. The night before I went to the studios to record all those voiceovers, I ran his program, and it produced this gigantic file that I then printed. And I had to buy a special fat binder because it was this much, even thin, cheap paper that Sierra used. It was this much paper. And it had every line on it. Now, he also, I said something, well, if we're doing dialogues, we want to know what the other person said.
So there's an interrelation.
Yeah. So then it was a section of lines for Larry to say that were singletons by themselves. Mm-hmm. And then it had all the Larry plus Marjorie, dialogue. Yep. So that anytime the two of them interacted, or anytime three people interacted, that was another chapter, and then so forth. And it went through every possible permutation and combination, but only once. So you didn't record the lines twice, and if you did make a mistake when you recorded the somebody and somebody else with Larry, well, their lines would be the same number as that line that he had first. So in case you did record it over, it didn't matter because it would only save as the one magic number. Yeah. So then we said, well, this is going to be a horrible job to break 10,000 or 8,000 lines out of an audio file. How can we handle that? He said, well, there's this new thing called DAT. Have you heard of DAT?
Digital audio tape for those playing at home.
Yeah. Back in the, 80s? Maybe early 90s. He picked one DAT machine, I believe it was Panasonic, that had a serial port. And he studied that and he said, laptops have a serial port. Well, they did back then. So if I connected those two serial ports together, could I make the laptop control the DAT machine? And he did. And then he said, well, if the laptop has the script, Al's original script that was this thick in it as one big text file, couldn't we just jump to page 600 and start recording there and send a signal to have the DAT machine send the NAB code, which is National Association of Broadcast. It's time code. In other words, when you start the tape, it says 0, and then from then on, it counts 30ths of a second. I think it might be milliseconds, but I'm thinking it was because it was TV. I think it was 30ths of a second. But anyway, whatever. It counts some magic, type number, and so then he has the program on the laptop. When you press I think it was the space bar, it stores the magic 11-digit number on a text file, and it stores the DAT code of the start point of that. And then when you're done, you touch the space bar again when the guy's done reading, and that's writes a little thing to the end code. And I think that's all it records. I think it's like 11 bytes and then 20 and 20. But it's a tiny little text file. And so we would put in an hour DAT tape and just record in the studio. And the guy running the laptop I was the director, and we had the audio engineer do the laptop. So he would go down the list of lines that had to be read. He would say, all right, we're ready to read line number 1027. And the guy would flip in his paper, and he'd go, oh, okay, I got it. What am I doing here? All right, I got it. And then it was ready, and he would touch the space bar, and the guy would read the line. The actor would read the line, and then when he was done, Dave would touch the space bar again, and that was the out point. And then that line was written into the database on a file somewhere. At the end of the day, we would have maybe 6 DAT tapes full of data like this. Yep. And all of it fit in one little data file, but we made 6. We made one data file for each tape, not to be confused. And, and so the at the end of the day, we would copy that data to a floppy, take the 6 DAT tapes, put them in a FedEx box, and send them back to Oakhurst or back to Bellevue on later games. By the time the guys showed up the next morning, they would break out all the lines from the day before his recording, and the game would just start speaking, as if magic. He also wrote another program. He said, well, if I know the start point and the end point, I can just have the computer run the DAT tape to that point, press play, save it to a file, I think we used WAV files back then, save it to a WAV file, and then stop it at the stop point. So then we'll have a WAV file. Yeah, but sometimes you'd press the space bar early, or sometimes you'd press it late. And what are you going to do about that? Well, he wrote a program called Trim that would automatically go through and take out all the silence at the beginning and end of the lines. And and then we had a problem with, well, all the characters have a kind of different volume. There was no compression or anything. And so he wrote a program that would go through the entire audio directory. It was called Normalize. Mm-hmm. He would type Normalize, and it would go through and bring up the volume of anything too loud and take down the volume of anything too, vice versa. I mean, absolutely astonishing. And what did Sierra do with that software, which would revolutionize the cartoon industry, the Hollywood? Every time we went into a studio, the audio engineer who worked in the studio in Hollywood would say, what in the hell is that? What is that? I want that software. Where can I buy that? What did they do with it? Into the ether. It's gone.
Into the ether. Well, I guess we could technically blame CUC for that, but
yeah.
shuttled the
Had
whole
no
thing.
idea what they had.
No, that is so tragic, and that was indeed the story that I was hoping you'd tell, because that is just pure magic. The idea you can just hit a space bar, hit it again, the whole thing trims, the whole thing normalizes, you go back home, and the game is talking. It's just reading the WAV file off the disk. And interestingly, that normalizer, the one game where I found that it sort of tripped up on itself was Gabriel Knight 1, because there's a character who's dying, like is reclining on a church pew somewhere, and he's coughing a lot. So obviously he's got a real hushed tone of voice, but every once in a while he coughs really loudly. So of course all of his lines are really soft because the cough is so loud. But other than that, beautiful. Yeah. They couldn't anticipate a cough, obviously, but that's a beautiful system.
Actually, Jane could have gone back from the once she played the game and noticed it, like you noticed it. She could have gone back to the original, because we saved all the original audio files. You know, each of those we didn't bring a file in, normalize it, and then save it as itself. There, we put it in a subdirectory called normal, and so all the original files were still there. So,
and you also, I suppose, technically still had the DAT tapes. They must have probably gone the same way as the software, unfortunately.
Oh, it's all junk. Yeah, just throw it in the dumpster.
Oh God, that means that somewhere out there's like a crystal clear 48 kilohertz version of Leisure Suit Larry 6 rolling around somewhere in a landfill. That's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I really love about your games and Gabriel Knight games is that you didn't just pull in Joe from accounting to do a voiceover here and there. You actually got proper voice actors to do the lines. And Gabriel Knight has some brilliant voice acting, but there's so much dialogue in that game. To fit it on one CD, they had to compress the hell out of that audio. So really? some of it is kind of, I think it's 22 kilohertz or something.
It's hard to believe, but this was before there was MP3s.
Oh yeah, those are uncompressed VOC files. I think
when we got a 25% compression, we were proud. I remember the guys coming in going, "Hey, we've got it. We got the files down by a fourth," and and it still sounded good, you know, but. But MP3s, my God, it's like 10%. We get down 90%. So,
it's astonishing.
Anyway.
At least you didn't have to do what Lucasfilm did with Loom. Excuse me. The first CD-ROM game that Lucasfilm ever put out was Brian Moriarty's Loom. Instead of putting the data, the speech audio files as data on the CD, it was Redbook audio. So they had 60 minutes tops for all the dialogue in the entire game. That thing is trimmed to shit. They wisely figured out a way to compress audio. Yeah, it is.
That's a great game, though.
It is a fantastic game. Oh, and a side note, I just have to humble brag on this one. I did a live stream a few years ago where we did a sort of Let's Play / Mystery Science Theater-ish thing with Loom. And we had Brian Moriarty himself in to play Chaos, you know, the big baddie. And he was into it. He was joking and laughing along with us. It was great.
Oh, good.
Oh, shit. Where was I? that is beautiful. That technology is so beautiful. Someone could recreate that, I'm sure, with today's.
I've heard that just within the past few years that Avid, the professional editor and stuff, has added a thing, but the thing that the way we automated it was that magic 8 characters plus 3-digit extension. Yeah. Those because we assigned a specific line number based on the actions and situations in the scene. I'm not sure how another screen editor, another script editor, not editor, but
engine, whatever.
A thing that broke out a script. What do you call that? Whatever takes the script and breaks it into lines.
I'm not a programmer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever. But that program would have a hell of a time with a regular Hollywood script because while the scripts say a character's name, it doesn't give you the context or any of the magic numbers or anything that would give you the answers.
True, but as far as game development goes, this could easily, because the way Adventure Game Studio does it is you write out your entire script, and then you hit a button, and it assigns every voice line a number sequentially, and then it creates a text file for you, kind of the same way as you described it, with all the singular lines, and then with dialogue between characters, kind of stuff. But there's nothing automated beyond that. If you want to go back and change a line or add more lines, you have to redo that whole automatic numbering thing, and all the numbering goes out of whack. So you have to really lock in that script before you send it to voice actors. Yeah, that's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's that's.
So I would love for Adventure Game Studio. It's a freeware program, so I would love for the nerds who sit there and do this out of the kindness of their hearts to, do some sort of automated voice. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So the last thing. Oh, we've gone for an hour. I was going to ask you about the narrator voice and stuff like that, but I don't know. Do you have time for that?
Sure. Yeah. What?
Oh, good. This is a completely different topic again. It's because the podcast episode that we did many years ago that failed to record was ostensibly about the role of the narrator in an adventure game. With most adventure games, especially from the early Sierra period, you had this sort of second person narrator that said, you do this and you go there, and it didn't really give the main character a name, and it also didn't speak to the main character. It sort of spoke to the player behind the screen. You are now doing this, you are now doing that.
Right.
Whereas I've noticed as far back as the first Leisure Suit Larry game, the narrator specifically addresses Larry.
Yeah.
As if it's a voice in his head. And
that was a decision I made early on in the process, because I felt like the narrator, I wanted the player to feel like they were the star in the show. They were Ego. They were Larry. And so I had the narrator address them as Larry, and I told them that you did this and you did that, as opposed to Graham walks over here and does that. It was, you walked there, you did that, you opened the door.
Yeah. And later down the line in the series, not only does the narrator address Larry directly in the game, they also start having conversations, sometimes arguments. It gets particularly bad in Leisure Suit Larry 6, I think, in 7 certainly. But
that 7 and Larry 7 of the Larry's stateroom. Do you remember his bedroom was down in the boiler room and stuff?
Oh yeah.
And that's bad. Oh no, Larry, that's good.
Yeah, I love that exchange. That's actually my favorite exchange in the game.
That was fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it just keeps going and going. So I think that my question is, does Larry actually hear that voice in his head? Or is that just for the player's benefit, the same way you fourth wall break in a stage play and you address the audience? Or is he actually slightly schizophrenic?
I think he hears the voice because the narrator gives him information. It's not just fourth wall. I think it's real. I got to think about that one a while. I've never been asked that question.
Because the reason why I asked this is, being a Space Quest nerd, obviously everything has to revolve around Space Quest for me. Space Quests 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all had the same second person, you do this, you do that. It was never Roger does this. It was never. But Space Quest 6 had Josh Mandel as the writer, and all of a sudden, it starts addressing Roger directly. And there's a particular scene where the narrator says something, and Roger tells him to pound sand, and he's talking to Stellar at the time, and Stellar says, what was that noise? So it's like, oh shit, all of a sudden, it's not just a voice in Roger's head. Everyone can hear him. They're just ignoring him for some reason. You see, I think way too much about this shit.
I never went that far, but that's a great idea. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yep.
Yeah, so I think way too much about this shit. But I
think the most interesting question people ask me usually in an interview was, are you Larry? Is Larry your character?
And, no, you're a school teacher. God, no.
The narrator is me. I'm God. I know everything. It's yeah. So I mean, I always felt like that. Of anything, it was that sarcasm and all that stuff. Those were pretty much straight Al Lowe, and the Larry stuff was the comedy. So.
Yeah, I
and it was great to always have a guy who could be the butt of the jokes.
and fictional characters. So you're neither punching up nor punching down. You're not punching. You're punching the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Sir, I got nothing left. You have answered all my questions expertly and reiterated the stories that I was hoping you would reiterate, and I'm just very humbled and grateful.
Well, I hope that we got record this time.
This thing saves to the cloud, and there's a support line. I'm not taking any fucking chances. So, yes, this will...
It was fun. It's fun talking with you.
Thank you. I'll see you at the fanfare, and maybe. Good. So my initial idea was to have you first. I was thinking, should he sign this? No. Well, should he? What? Should he blow his nose in it? Now there's an idea.
No, that would be.
But we'll think of something. But anyway, it was great talking to you, sir. Have a great day.
Likewise.